Welcome, wrestling fans. Welcome to Curtain Jerkin. As always, I'm your host, Jacob Grondy, reporting for the Main Event Marks YouTube channel. You can also check me out on Spotify, Apple Music. However you're listening to my voice right now, I appreciate it. I also appreciate the world of pro wrestling. We're going to be talking about AEW Dynamite from tonight. We're going to be talking about New Japan Pro Wrestling Dominion for predictions for, coming up this weekend. We're also be talking about WWE. Braun Strowman injured, unfortunately, a few days after Night of Champions. Ali appears on NXT. That fall was fast. Baron Corbin also shows up in NXT, but I think this was good. He took the L from the guy who got the call up in the main roster. He ends up in NXT. Kind of gives him a fresh coat of paint, gives him some fresh matchups, and then also gives the guys in NXT someone to work with as well. So that was pretty cool. But I don't think that was the big news leaving Tuesday, waking up Wednesday morning. I don't think that was the big wrestling news. I think the big wrestling news, or should I say sports entertainment news, is Jake Paul on his brother's podcast, Impulsive. He went into how did they get to wrestle Nate Diaz. He said that he thought that Logan Paul would have been able to wrestle Nate Diaz, but Nate Diaz thought that Jake Paul fight is more legit than a Logan Paul fight, which I would have to agree. One got his name in boxing, one got his name in WWE, so innately one will seem more legit, and so I personally agree with that. And then he goes into talking about Conor McGregor called Jake Paul a donkey. And, the guy just kind of throws him a softball question, like, are you a bovine creature? Just like making a joke, kind of like thinking it was a silly insult, throwing a softball at him. And then this is the best part of the interview. He says, I will beat the fucking fuck out of Conor McGregor, and that Jake Paul is a better boxer. It's just right out in the open he said that. And he says, you are going to sit there and drinking beer from your new beer company that's failing and realize that you pissed your life away drinking. MJF level jabs here to a legit fighter, Conor McGregor. And then he said, when I knock Diaz out and you realize I'm the biggest fighter that you can get, pretty much saying like Conor McGregor's biggest fight will be Jake Paul. And that's probably true. I mean, looking at the UFC roster, looking at the guys that Conor McGregor could beat in the UFC, because, let's face it, he's probably, dwindling down right now in his UFC career. So the guys that Conor McGregor could potentially win in a fight, their star power is much lower than Jake Paul. So I feel like that's a legitimate point that Jake Paul made here, despite coming across very rude and shitty. But this is, he's kind of playing that sports entertainment, the pro wrestling game right here. He knows what he's doing. If you watch the interview, he was acting very normal, and then all of a sudden something lit up under him whenever they, asked him questions about Conor McGregor. He was looking right at the camera. He was saying some crazy shit. It was like he became that wrestling persona, became that Jake Paul persona, said the thing that he knew that we were going to talk about going into, this fight with Nate Diaz in August, but also this potential fight with Conor McGregor. And if I were Dana White, I would make an exception for this, much like you made an exception for the Mayweather-McGregor fight, which is kind of like a foreshadowing event into the celebrity boxing era that we're in now. I would say it was McGregor-Mayweather that led up to, Tyson wanting to come back. And then the undercard of Tyson coming back during the pandemic in 2020 was Jake Paul knocking out Nate Robinson. And now here we are. So I think that this whole era can come full circle with the Jake Paul Conor McGregor fight. And if you're Dana White, there's only a few more times you can cash in on the star power of Conor McGregor. And if you keep feeding him guys in the UFC, he's going to keep getting knocked out, because he's not the Conor McGregor of old. He's not the Conor McGregor of like 10 years ago now. He's not even the Conor McGregor of like 5 or 6 years ago. He's the Conor McGregor that was laying there with a broken leg saying, hey, your wife's in my DMs. Which, as funny as that moment is, it was kind of sad, because that was a fighter who obviously lost a fight, clearly lost a fight, got his leg broken, and was still sitting there talking crap. So I want to see this fight. You got two sports entertainers in Conor McGregor, and Jake Paul, and you also have, the build to this Nate Diaz fight. So, 1 hour of Jake Paul, he's setting up two big matches, which, I don't think that there's a lot of wrestling shows I watch that set up two big matches that I'd like. So Jake Paul, he can put butts in the seats. I don't know why a lot of people who watch pro wrestling week to week aren't at least impressed by this guy and how he can talk and how he can cut this heel promo. Like, you got to put him up there as top heels of the game. Like, a lot of WWE fans like to be like, well, Miz is like the top heel. That's not necessarily true. I mean, at most, he's third place. You got to put MJF and you got to put Jake Paul on that list above The Miz, I would say. Logan Paul also says he's excited to come back to the WWE. He's watching WWE, and pretty much is ready to come back, which is kind of cool. I think it's a nice nuance wrestler to have on the WWE roster. Speaking of WWE Raw obviously took place on Monday. We're just going to go over my thoughts and to kind of review Raw before I review Dynamite. AJ Styles comes out during Seth Rollins' coronation, so to speak, proving that the WWE draft is useless as like a male nipple or something. He said, you know what, Seth? You don't deserve anything. You earned the right to become the World Heavyweight Champion. Whatever. Deserved, earned. Let's not split hairs here, AJ. They shake hands, and that helps set up the main event against Judgment Day later on in the evening. Because Judgment Day come out, they interrupt the two faces sharing a moment of respect, and they issue a challenge, but they don't tell them which members of Judgment Day it's going to be, kind of teasing that it might be Rhea Ripley for a little bit. But it is Finn Balor and Priest, the two guys you kind of want to see go up against AJ Styles and Seth Rollins. But what if the men's world champion went up against the women's world champion? What if they locked horns? That would be kind of interesting. The main event was good, and I thought there was a lot of good wrestling on Raw. I thought there was a lot of good wrestling on Dynamite. I'm pretty excited. I think this weekend wrestling had just as much good wrestling as this weekend in wrestling. Honestly, Dom and Rhea get sent to the back. That spot is done almost every week on some wrestling show. I think Modern Wrestling does that spot a bit too much, even though it does get a pop every time. Seth and AJ end up winning with the curb stomp. There was a series of Money in the Bank qualifying matches on Raw. One being Miz versus Ricochet. That one was up first, and I know I just kind of shit on The Miz, but The Miz impressed me here. He did a lot in this match. A sloppy Hurricane Rana, but still a Hurricane Rana from The Miz. And then he hit a Codebreaker roll through into a DDT. That was pretty slick. Very un-Miz, but very cool. Shooting Star 1, 2, 3 Ricochet wins, so we're not going to see that Miz in the Money in the Bank ladder match this year. The other qualifying match was Bronson Reed versus Nakamura. Nakamura wins a solid match, but this isn't good for Reed. He was in the triple threat match at Backlash, where he ate the pin, not on Clash of the Champions, and then it looks like he's not going to be in Money in the Bank either. But let's jump to Trish Stratus. Usually we're talking about something else on Trish, but we're going to be talking about Trish's bruise on her face. She caught a nasty one in Saudi Arabia. Becky Lynch is out there. Zoe Starks is out there. The man issues a challenge. Trish sends Zoe after her. Zoe eats some shit, but the numbers games proves to be too much for, the man here. They both stomp a mud hole in her. Zoe hits a Z360. I've never seen this move. Didn't watch much of NXT, so I don't know much of Zoe Starks, but this move was cool. And then they kind of put a thank you Trish shirt on her and everything, leave her laying a little bit. Indus comes out, like Indus push now, please. No, these guys are good or whatever. I mean, Veer did slip getting on the ring, but they played it off well. They went up against Javier Bernal, hopefully I'm saying that correctly, and Kevin Ventura Cortez. two, I guess, NXT standouts. I think one was a part of the NIL program, so here he is popping up on Raw. Indus made short work of these two. I don't know if these guys are going to go anywhere with this. I mean, I think, ever since, they did the Bludgeon Brothers in 2018, and then you started seeing, like, the Viking Raiders get pushed in, like, 2019, but then by 2020, they were shooting basketballs with the Street Profits. It seems like every time they try to put over a big tag team like this, it doesn't work out. I feel like the tag team division is kind of like a light heavyweight division, so to speak, in WWE, because it seems like, that's when you see guys like Montez Ford, Chad Gable, Kofi Kingston last few years. So it's really like the tag division is like the work rate division, and having, a slow match putting over two big guys kind of in doesn't really work in WWE as a tag team right now. You've kind of conditioned the audience that tag teams are going to be cool, spot fest ish matches. So I don't think it's, I feel for these guys. I want to see them get over, but I don't think they're going to get over like this. Imperium interrupts Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. Kevin Owens brings up run-in etiquette in WWE. They broke the unwritten rule. This was funny. He says, we haven't mentioned you guys, so, you guys have to, pretty much wait for someone to mention you to come out. I thought this was pretty clever, like kind of like peeking through the fourth wall, but not really busting it down. Great little clever thing to be mad about by Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens is great. But then the whole thing gets interrupted by Chad Gable coming out with Alpha Academy. We got Alpha Academy versus Imperium. The Maximum Male Model Girl is kind of just with Alpha Academy now, not mad at Chad Gable anymore, not trying to take Otis away from Chad Gable. That kind of whole storyline kind of went kaput, and now you just have a hot girl with Chad Gable and Otis. The whole team's just going to be more over. I mean, that shush thing is getting like Cena pops. Everyone likes it. And then, of course, everyone likes Otis. I think they dropped the ball with Otis, not giving him a world title match after he won the Money in the Bank in 2020. But Imperium does get the victory here. The women's tag title 4-way. I know I kind of have been a little harsh on this division, but I think this match was good. The division was in shambles because of Liv Morgan's injury and Dakota Kai's injury to a lesser extent. So now we have, 4 teams battling it out. Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler win the titles. I think this works because, it's a team that isn't just a makeshift team like a few of these teams were, and it puts the title and the division on one of the biggest stars you have in the whole company. And it also, Ronda, even though she is one of the biggest stars, she's not really that good of a wrestler. So putting her in, tag matches might, showcase her strengths and hide her weaknesses a little more. So I think this is good for the titles. I think this is good for Ronda here. Gunther and Riddle exchanged a few words. I think this match would be pretty good if they do this at Money in the Bank. I feel like Riddle's stock has fallen a lot since he came back from injury, so to speak. Cody cuts a promo, still pissed at Brock, opens an open challenge to Brock or whatever. I thought an open challenge meant it's just for anybody, but he does an open challenge to Brock. He says, if I'm standing in the ring, I'm standing there ready to fight Brock Lesnar. I believe it, Cody. He had me hyped up from this promo. Run it back. I said it last episode. I'm ready for the rubber match. JD McDonough versus Dolph Ziggler. A feud that started before my eyes a few weeks ago in the Greensboro Coliseum. Now we get the payoff. I'm interested to see someone like JD on the main roster. He can talk. He can go. I hate to bring it up, but he's a little small. So, most people in the WWE, maybe the WWE audience, might be conditioned to be watching, bigger guys, because traditionally a smaller guy like JD, despite work ethic and work rate, does not do well in the WWE system. And it also, you don't really do well if you get DQ'd in the match. Here, Dolph Ziggler getting thrown into the steps, JD McDonough stomping a mud hole in Dolph Ziggler. I like that term. Ever since JR kind of popped me a few times in the Double or Nothing pay-per-view, I've been saying some JR slogans this the past few days just to have a laugh. He tells Ziggler to remember his name. Ziggler really wasn't doing anything before, and I think that, like I said, both these guys can go, so I'm all for this feud, even if it doesn't really end up on a pay-per-view. If it just is a week-to-week thing on Raw, I don't mind. I think it's going to be pretty good. So that's my Raw thoughts. Of course, AEW Dynamite was a few hours ago. I just watched that. My overall thoughts before I rank every single match from worst to first. The Elite licking their wounds after Anarchy in the arena. Matt Jackson with the line of the night. I never thought the day would come where I would melt a man's face with an exploding shoe, but here we are. And the Dark Order come out. It gets a little awkward with Hangman Page, like, hey, I thought you were our friend, not their friend, kind of a thing. I mean, I was with the Dark Order, but their stock has dropped so far, and they've lost so many members. They're just like 3 guys now. I would give them a fresh coat of paint. I would break them up, and maybe keep Evil Uno, but Reynolds and Silver, maybe have them like kind of lose the Dark Order vibe and just be wrestlers or pick up new gimmicks or something like that. They also say Kenny Omega is not in the country, but not in Canada. Could he be in fucking Dominion? That's happening this weekend? I hope so. Bullet Club Gold pissed at FTR because FTR helped Starks when they were whooping Starks' ass. That's kind of heel logic right there if I've ever heard it. But then FTR come out, they start to brawl. This is fucking wrestling here. Starks with the equalizer. I love all 5 guys in this feud here. I'm stoked to see wherever it goes, and I'm glad that they brought in titles into this feud because I think the Jay White and Juice Robinson versus FTR can be spectacular matches. Juice versus Starks next week, I believe. So that was pretty big news, but not the biggest news of the night. Tony Khan officially announces CM Punk will be on the first AEW Collision in Chicago, and this, where were they at? San Jose crowd, I believe. Was pretty polarizing. You had some people, despite his 8-month absence, still rocking CM Punk shirts, ready to chant CM Punk. But then you had some people booing, which caused the people that were in CM Punk shirts to stand up and chant CM Punk. This might be pretty interesting to watch week to week to see how people react to CM Punk. I think this might be good because Punk is better as a heel. So, these crowd booing him might give him something to sink his teeth into. And, I mean, every good heel has had a home base. I mean, Chicago, they love Punk, but, the rest of the world could hate him. This sounds like Ric Flair in the Mid-Atlantic, Flair country. It sounds like Tom Brady in Foxborough. But the best heels of all time with those home bases have the work rate to back it up. Will CM Punk have the work rate to back up this polarizing view the AEW fan base has of him? We'll have to find out. In 2023, I don't know. In 2012, yes. When he was saying it's clobbering time, dropping pipe bombs in WWE, yes. Most definitely, he had the work rate. When he came back in 2021 and 2022, no, he was trying to keep up with everyone doing springboards and shit and slipping on the rope. And then when he would do old school stuff like scoop slams, just his offense kind of felt like it was the offense of yesteryear because it was pretty much like the offense of like what you would see 20 years ago. So, I mean, as much as CM Punk was like one of my favorites of all time, this is going to be pretty interesting. I'm just going to say interesting to see what happens next with CM Punk. But all I know is June 17th, I know what I'm watching. I know what I watched this week on Dynamite. I watched a Statlander video package, the Acclaim promo. They want the Trios title. I want them to have the Trios title. Then Don Callis cuts a promo. He's got heat with this crowd. I love the spot where he's naming all the people that Takeshita is better than, and he's Rikidozan, Inoki, Okada. I mean, it's just funny lines just while a sea of people are booing him. I hope that the last name that he mentioned, Okada, was kind of like a little foreshadowing for Forbidden Door. I think that would be a great match. And also, I think, if Takeshita loses to Okada, it really wouldn't shake things up too much. And I don't want to see Okada lose. I just don't. Wardlow video package, MJF video package. These video packages are pretty good. Hook coming out, cut a promo, gets interrupted by Ingobernables. Preston Vance and Drilistico start jumping Hook, but then Jungle Boy makes a save, and this is the first time we've seen Jungle Boy since the main event match. No mention of that main event match, so he's legitimately back to where he was prior to the build of that match, which kind of sucks, but he did get a bigger reaction, I noticed, from that crowd, so the main event match could have worked. We're going to have to see in the coming weeks, but it looks like he's back tagging with Hook, which is where he was prior to them doing this whole 4 pillars thing. So, I don't know. That didn't really seem too cool to me. But Sammy Guevara, nowhere to be found. MJF, not on the show other than the video package. So, we'll see what happens with these 4 pillars in the rest of 2023. The Outcast cut a promo. Tony Storm is the new champ. And now we're going to rank every single match from worst to first, starting with number 5. I thought this Dynamite was really good. Solid matches. This last match isn't really a last match. It's just not as good as the other matches. Nyla Rose versus Chris Statlander. Chris Statlander hits a powerbomb to the bigger lady. 1-2, no. Cannonball on the outside into the guardrail. Back in the ring. 1-2. Champ kicks out. Hits a 450. 1-2-3. Chris Statlander retains the TBS Championship in her first defense. Number 4, Gates of Agony versus Cassidy and Darby. Cassidy and Darby, a bit of a random team if you ask me. Swerve watching on top of the ramp. Gates of Agony cleaning house. Darby in trouble, makes a hot tag to Cassidy. Cassidy ends up getting in trouble too. 1-2, Darby breaks it up. Stun dog, coffin drop. 1-2-3. Faces get the victory. Swerve and the Mogul affiliates surround the ring, but the goddamn Icon comes out and makes a save. Nothing's going down on his watch. He's got the bomber jacket. This was cool, man. I was wondering, why is Cassidy teaming with Darby? Where's Sting? And then, boom. They know I was going to ask that question, and they give me my Sting. That's fucking cool. But those 2 matches didn't make the podium. What's third place? What's bronze medalist of today's Dynamite? Jericho and Saraya versus Cole and Baker, the main event. Snug chops from Jericho. Ladies throwing elbows like they're ludicrous. Jericho pulling himself onto Saraya to stop Britt Baker, but she doesn't stop. She hits the frog splash. Cole gets put in the lion tamer. Baker breaks up the lion tamer by applying the lockjaw to Jericho. Boom knee, 1-2-3. The AEW power couple gets the victory in the main event. Number 2, Trent versus Big Bill versus Swerve. What a unique match on Dynamite. Real cool. All 3 of these guys really didn't get a fair shake for one reason or another in their WWF singles runs. Or tag runs for Trent's perspective, I think. Trent hit a moonsault, huge black hole slam from Bill. 1-2, Swerve breaks it up, choke slam from Bill to Trent into the ring from the apron. Then he turns around on the apron and gets a big double stomp by Swerve. Swerve takes advantage of Trent's just getting choke slammed, gets the victory. 1-2-3. Good shit here. Number 1, the Curtain Jerker, not the main event. Blackpool Combat Club versus Lucha Bros and Bandito. Bandito was with Cassidy and Best Friends. Now he's with the Lucha Bros. I'm not going to be too nitpicky here, but what the fuck's going on? Brawling before the bell. Bandito delayed vertical suplex for 60 seconds. Pile driver to the floor by Blackpool Combat Club to Bandito. Penta launching himself using Claudio into Moxley so he could hit the DDT. Cross body from Phoenix. 1-2. Yuta kicks out. Clobbering blows from Yuta. Then he rolls him up. 1-2-3. Blackpool Combat Club get the victory. So that was what I watched this week. I watched Monday Night Raw. I watched Dynamite on Wednesday. But this Sunday, I'm going to be watching Dominion. New Japan Pro Wrestling Dominion. We're going to be breaking down every match here. We're going to be giving the exclusive Curtain Jerkin predictions here. The kickoff match. You got Oscar Lube. I think this is the the Russian young lion versus 3 other young lions. I mean, come on, you gotta. I mean, it would be pretty boring if the team of 3 won that one. So you got to give it to the young lion that's taking on 3 other young lions. And then the first match here, Will Ospreay versus Lance Archer, an IWGP United States Heavyweight Championship #1 contenders match. So, Will Ospreay could win this one. And then all of a sudden, you got Will Ospreay versus Kenny Omega. Kenny Omega is out of the country, but not in Canada. Maybe he's in Japan. Who the fuck knows? I think Will Ospreay is winning this one. Then the second match on the card, you have an 8-man tag. Just 4 guys. The actual name of the faction, Taka Michinoku, Doki, Kanemaru, and Taichi versus Titan, Bushi, Shingo Takagi, and Naito. So members of LIJ versus members of just 5 guys. The story here is that Sonata, the world champion, left LIJ to become the leader of just 5 guys. And because of that, I think that you have to set up world title #1 contenders in the old faction to wrestle the guy who left the faction. So I think LIJ, led by Naito, is going to get the victory here. You have the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team Championship match. The new champions, Kevin Knight and Kushida versus Francesco Akira and TJP. This is pretty interesting because Kevin Knight, I think, is the first LA Dojo wrestler to win gold on the, let's say, the main roster of New Japan Pro Wrestling. And because of that, I think that they're going to retain. This is their first defense, after all. 4th match, 15-minute time limit, New Japan Pro Wrestling World Television Championship match. Zack Sabre Jr. versus Jeff Cobb. This match was pretty good last time they did it. I'm glad they're running it back. And I want to see Zack Sabre Jr. win it. I love the 15-minute stipulation on this match here. Then you have the IWGP Tag Team Champions and the IWGP, or New Japan, I can't even say it, the Strong Tag Champions. Both sets of tag team championships in the heavyweight division in Japan on the line here. Yoshihashi and Goto, the guys who used to be the tag champs, versus Hanare and Great-O-Khan versus Yujiro Takahashi and Evil. I think you're going to put it on Yoshihashi and Goto. This match really doesn't seem interesting to me. You also have the G1 Climax 33 participants will be announced, so that's pretty exciting. It's probably going to be the most newsworthy thing leaving this show. You also have the Never Openweight Championship match, David Finlay in his first defense versus El Fantasma. I think David Finlay's going to win this one. Did El Fantasma leave Bullet Club? I can't remember. I don't know. Never Openweight 6-man Tag Team Championship, Ishii, Tanahashi, Okada versus Umino, Claudio Castagnoli, and Jon Moxley. So a little bit of Blackpool Combat Club action here in New Japan Pro Wrestling. But you gotta be stuck on stupid, even if you're just an American fan, to think that Okada, Tanahashi, and Ishii are going to lose the 6-man Tag Team Championship in their first defense. Something's going to happen here. They're going to set up some matches for Forbidden Door or something down the line, but the champs are going to retain. And then the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship match on the line, Hiromu Takahashi versus the winner of the Best of the Super Juniors, Master Wato. As ridiculous as that statement is, the Best of Super Juniors, Master Wato, I'm going to go with Takahashi here. Hiromu's going to win this one. And then you have Sonata versus the newest member of the faction he left, LIJ, Yota Tsuji. He looks like Aquaman, the guy who played Aquaman. He looks like Aquaman when he looks like the character Aquaman when he wears this goofy leather jacket. He takes it off. He looks like the GQ Aquaman. He looks like the actor who plays Aquaman, but he is a New Japan Pro Wrestling Dojo alumni, a former Young Lion, going up against the new world champion. I'm going with the new world champion here, Sonata. So I don't think any titles changed hands in my predictions, which it would be a pretty boring show if that happened. So don't listen to these predictions. This is just me hyping this shit up. Hopefully you guys watch this with me. Hopefully you guys like my podcast. Fly high. I'm out.